Spoiler alert, not every Airbnb is going to be a blockbuster, but even the ones that underperform have some lessons to teach us. And I know we hear all the time about, here's how great I'm doing at Airbnb and I'm so cool, I'm so whatever. And yes, I've shared some of those wins as well. But today I want to show you something a little different that will really change your mind and perception on investing in real estate and becoming an entrepreneur. So without further ado, I'm going to share with you my 5 worst performing Airbnbs and all of the personal stories, laughs, pains, and horrors that come with them. Because in the grand scheme, they were all amazing stepping stones into becoming the entrepreneur that I am today. And I'm still very thankful. And I'm going to show you some things that you'll be pretty impressed with at the end, because you can't understand everything about what you're learning until you get there. And I'm going to show you a couple things that you can't really understand while you're doing it until you finally arrive. And these are the lessons that I learned, and it took me years to figure out. But good God, if I didn't wait, I wouldn't be able to have the wins that I'm having today. And I really hope you check out the entire video, because at the end, you're going to see some big wins that we've experienced, and they're not as obvious as you might have thought. Hey, my name's Matt, and in real estate, cash flow is king, but it's not the whole kingdom. What you can see here is the summary of what's going on. You can see our monthly revenue per property for 2024, our holding costs, which includes our taxes, insurance, utilities, the mortgage payment, then our net pre-cleaning, our net post-cleaning. You gotta have your cleaning fees in there, because man, do they add up. I'm telling you, it's a really major thing. You never can forget to put that in, or you will be hurting. And then in that final column, you can see our current values, which is based on our most recent appraisals. Automatically, you can see our outliers, $600 to $1,200 per month in net revenue. Now, some of you are going to say that's not even worth it. I can get long-term rent rates at that point, but there's more to it, right? If you can finally figure out short-term rental real estate and you can be successful in it, you're learning how to operate a completely different asset class, which can be helpful, especially if you're interested in going with bigger properties, maybe even hotels. Is the juice worth the squeeze? Not always. But again, these 5 really helped me get started and understand where I needed to be even more successful. And coincidentally, most of these are some of my very first Airbnbs. So you're going to see that overall, they're okay. Some of them are pretty good, but there's nothing amazing about any of them. And again, they are making us money. Now I want to share with you each story behind each property. Okay, we're going to start with Townley. Man, what a looker. Looks like a pre-foreclosure, and it pretty much was when we bought it. It was pretty ugly. We bought it for $58,500, and it was okay at best. It was just a simple 2-bed house. It was clean enough. We had a lot of work to do to make the cosmetics kind of shine. And let me add something else. This was our very first rental we ever purchased. When we first bought it, we bought it in a decent city that we thought would do well. And I was so worried I was going to screw up, and I had a partner on it. I was like, man, if I screw this up, he'll never want to work with me again. And well, it worked. And it's because I did my due diligence. It's because I really tried to make sure it worked. And I found good tenants that would do a good job with the property, and they paid their rent. So overall, it was a win. And over time, I started hearing about Airbnb, and this ended up being our 3rd Airbnb for our first property we ever purchased. Now I'm going to show you what it looks like. So here it is. This is the property now that we've tuned it up. We did a full rehab. We did a bunch of cool furnishing. And again, this was one of those things where we said, hey, let's do something fun and different in the area. So we went very colorful, and we've gotten a lot of compliments on it. And overall, I'm very happy with how it turned out. In hindsight, as I'm looking through it, I go, okay, we could have done a bigger TV. We could have had the TV on when we did the photos. We have an in-house design team, and this was one of the first ones I said, you know what, let's get crazy. Let's do some fun colors. And well, it happened. Overall, I was pretty dang happy with how our kitchen turned out too. It was a way better improvement over the previous one. And again, we get a lot of positive compliments on that. Now on this property, we really saw a lot of immediate gratification. We went from a long-term rental to a short-term rental. Now, when we were doing long-term rentals, we ended up getting closer to $1,300 in long-term rent. Now that it's a short-term rental, we've more than doubled the gross rent that we're receiving on the property. And overall, we're making a much higher net. So before, we were barely making $400 a month in net rent. Now this is one of my favorite properties. So technically it's a duplex, and we ended up renting each side as an individual Airbnb. But this is the one that started it all as a duplex, and this was technically my first Airbnb. We had a long-term tenant move out, and we said, this Airbnb thing is looking pretty interesting. Maybe we should try something here. And this was the one where I was like, you know what, worst case, I'm out 2-3 months of rent. So let's call it $4,000. And then I thought, you know what, in terms of furnishing costs, maybe it'll be about $5 grand. Now I can't do that anymore. And frankly, for my first Airbnb, it was pretty lame. I've actually refurnished this thing twice since then because it looked like a messed up used college dorm room, and I'm lucky I even made it. But because I've gotten better over time, I know what to do, and I know how to do it much more intelligently, and it makes us a lot more money. So as you can see, when we bought it, it was just a simple brick duplex. Nothing was great about it. Kind of forgettable. Just looked old and whatever, right? Comically, these are some of the photos. We listed it as a long-term rental when we did have it done, right after we did the fresh paint and the new refinished wood floors. But it kind of just feels forgettable still, right? Just there's nothing great about it. So let me show you what it looks like now that we've done 2 rehabs later. 2 rehabs later, here we are. We did a much better job with the design. We really improved our photography. We started to really emphasize showing that, hey, this is a home that you can actually enjoy. We really tried to focus in on honing in on all the warm elements that would make it feel like, hey, this is a house I can stay in even for a few weeks, maybe a couple months. We started to really show that we have a tea bar, a coffee bar, things like that. And again, when we blew out that wall to make this kitchen the way it is, people said, hey, that's really nice. And even for the area, it started adding a lot more value to the property. As we keep looking through here, you can see that we put a lot of attention into the design, even though it was generally an old property. Now, we are very aware that this was not the top end type of design. This was nothing too crazy, but overall, we wanted people to think this looks very comfortable. This looks intentional. It doesn't feel hodgepodge. And by doing that, we get a lot of great reviews, and this is constantly booked. Like I said, when we first got this, we were barely doing $1,300 in gross rent. And after we turned it into a short-term rental, we got nearly $1,100 net in rent. And of course, the net on the original thing was like $300. So overall, we tripled it. So think about that. If you can triple your net revenue on short terms versus long terms, that really starts to add up very quickly. Let's say you have 10 properties that are all doing $300 net. So you have $3,000 in actual net income per month on 10 properties. What if you actually converted those all to short term and then it tripled that? So if you triple $3,000 and it becomes $9,000, now it's starting to do something called move the needle. And this is why we started saying, hey, we got to show our long-term investors the opportunity to invest with short-term by just converting their current asset. Yes, it takes a good amount of capital to do that, but the cash flow is totally worth it. And at the end of the day, you are improving and forcing appreciation on your property. Let's talk about number 7. This was Glenmore. So when we bought it, the tenants were still behind, and it wasn't fun because it was our first eviction. So when we bought it, the tenants were still behind. They continued to be behind even when we tried to work with them for the next couple of months. And we actually had to do an eviction. I think that was our 2nd or 3rd eviction ever. Not fun, but since then we haven't had to worry about that, which is great. As we scroll through, you can see that there's a lot of weird things. Carpet on most of the stairs. I don't know why there's all these little doohickey things everywhere, but it's just how people live, right? So one way or another, we knew it was a clean, solid house. It just needed to be brought back to life. So here's what we did. And again, this is in a city called Redford. And we thought, wouldn't it be kind of funny in Michigan to do something that had to do with Ford? Maybe we throw a little red in there. So here's what we got. So here it is. Again, this wasn't our best design. I think it was in our first attempt at trying a theme, and it was okay. It was okay. I think overall, comparative to the market, we were still pretty good. But I don't look at this and go, man, I crushed it on this one. It was good. We get good stays, we get good people, but that's it. This will never be something that will be off the charts. Looking back on it, there's so many things about this design I would never do again. We never use these end tables. We don't even use that type of coffee table. We don't use these dining tables. There's a lot of things I don't like. It just feels kind of like we were trying to pass as a theme, and it doesn't feel well executed. One of our last tenants right before converting this to a short term, again, we just weren't doing well with the tenants we were getting. So then we thought, what more risk is there to just convert this to a short term? Hopefully it'll do well. And it did. So on that house, we were somewhere around $1,400 in rent, and we really didn't have a whole lot of mortgage expense to this. I think it was like $700, so it was pretty cheap. So it was like a net $700. And now after all of that, we're a net $609. So did this work out? No, but it did allow for us to keep holding it. And overall, it helped us gain more experience along the way. And as you can see, because we held it for multiple years beyond that, now we're experiencing some really great appreciation, going from a $62,000 buy to a property that's worth about $150,000. So that extra 3 years of runway as a short-term rental has really improved our overall appreciation and potential equity that we're gonna be able to pull out of this. So again, this is probably our worst performing Airbnb to date, but I'm not too mad at it. Okay, here's something kind of fun. So we bought these 2 houses within, I think, a week of each other. This is Cummings and Kenmore, and they're in a great city, and we thought, hey, you know, these will probably have great ARV. And this is around that same time we started realizing the BRRRR method is a great vehicle to creating a lot of wealth. So we bought these two at the end of the year because we wanted to have something to write off that year. And we figured, hey, it's winter. They're mostly internal rehabs. We'll work on them throughout the winter. We'll get them up and running in the spring, and we'll see how it goes. So as we scroll down, you can see that the listing photos were pretty terrible. No, I did not take these, but sometimes this is just how bad listing agents do it. They had every color on the walls imaginable. I don't know what they were thinking. It looks just forgettable. And here's what we did with it. We decided to do another theme. We called this Cinema House. This became a movie themed stay. A lot of posters, some cameras, and kind of themes that would kind of go with cinema, popcorn, you name it. We blew out the wall in the kitchen, and we made sure that that kitchen looked really good after that because it was tiny, it was weird, and it was pretty unusable. Again, looking at some of the photos, I really hate it when people put small little posters up, and we were guilty of that too. So usually when I'm hating on people that maybe you feel like I've been coming after you, I'm actually hating on myself, I promise. But I'm also correcting those mistakes now. So as you kind of continue to scroll through, you can see a lot of changes. We had to fix the foundation on this one. We had to add an egress window. We added a bathroom to this thing. It's just a very nice, new, clean property. And for some reason, by the way, I don't know why, but there's a glitch going on and some of our photos are missing. So we're trying to get that fixed. The Big Lebowski doing what the Big Lebowski should be doing in the bathroom. I thought that was kind of fun. I don't do a whole lot of toilet humor these days in the bathrooms with these Airbnbs, but there was a time where I loved putting up something funny in there. All that being said, let's see what it's making. So after doing the refinance, it really started to eat into our cash flow. However, we now had a lot of our money back, which allowed us to continue to build some wealth with other properties. And that same thing happened with Kenmore, as you can see. They're both making just under $900 a month, which isn't great. But if you look at the values at which we bought them versus where they're at now, it really improved. And because we've had more time to hold on to that, we've really enjoyed the appreciation, both forced and natural. I mean, how often can you say you've added $100,000 of value to each of your properties in less than 3 years? It's pretty awesome. And no, our rehabs were not that bulk of it. I think our rehabs were about $45,000 on each one. And last but not least, let's look at Kenmore, because I did that one right alongside the Cummings property. So when we bought it, it was a good, clean house. Nothing special, just a good, clean house. Pretty mediocre listing photos. The kitchen was kind of forgettable. And we just said, hey, this is solid. Why don't we bring this back to life? So we did. We added another bathroom, we added another bedroom, egress window, you name it. And of course, we redid the kitchen, we redid the original bathroom, all new lighting, all new floors, paint. Here's where we're at. We ended up calling this one the Music House. And rightfully so. Each room was kind of a theme, and we just wanted it to be kind of a fun, cheerful thing because the city it's in actually has a great music and theater program, and I figured, hey, maybe this would be a cool thing to try out. And overall, it slightly edges out the other property I was just telling you about. Okay, so as a recap, I just want to run through all these properties so you understand the thoughts behind why I bought them, why I kept them, and where we're at. These 5 properties make us just over $5,000 net per month. And no, like individually, they're not great, but $5,000 per month is pretty helpful. And what's $5,000 net per month? Annualized, it's $60,000 net in your pocket. Now, for most people, that's like having another full income in your household. And guess what? That really helped us get our lives moving to the point where we could invest more and we could vacation more and enjoy ourselves. So again, these are our worst ones. So when you look at it, if all my best ones are doing that much better and there's everything in the middle, but then here are our worst ones. If these are the ones that didn't go as great as I had hoped, and they're still moving the needle, then isn't it possible that you can do even better than that? I certainly hope so, and that's exactly what we want to teach you. And even better than that, what I couldn't have predicted was the appreciation. You see the current values on the other side? Well, in total, that added $636,000 of value. I don't know about you, but in my old corporate job, it probably would have taken me 20 plus years to save over $500,000. And for the 10 years I was in corporate, I barely had $120,000 to my name in my 401k. I don't know about you guys, but I bust my butt to save that money. And it still just felt like moving a boulder uphill. And I'll tell you what didn't feel like that. this. Buying these properties, getting some cash flow in to enjoy myself along the way and also start saving money allowed me to continue to reinvest. And what I didn't notice was happening over the last 5 to 8 years of investing was just these 5 properties has brought in over $500,000, $636,000 worth of appreciation. And that's something you don't always see coming until it's arrived. And the other thing I'm not talking about, the tax savings. Tax savings are huge. You don't realize it, but when you go from an average 30% tax bracket on all your, let's say you make 100,000 and you're paying out 30 grand Uncle Sam, when you start getting that down to 15% and you're saving $15,000 per year, that adds up too. That adds to your cash flow. So if that $15,000 of tax savings gets added to my $60,000 of annual cash flow, then I'm at $75,000 in annual benefit in cash. In addition to that, that's $636,000 in appreciation. So I'm almost at $750,000 of benefit to my life from my 5 worst properties. And you know what? If you actually add up the cash flow over the whole time of all these properties, plus the appreciation for the next 3 years, I bet you I'm well over $1 million. So think about that. When you're so busy going, one property won't move the needle, you're right. One property does not change your life, but it will start to change your mind. The second one proves that you can duplicate that success. And the third one proves that you can follow the pattern. And somewhere after 5, 6, 7, 10, 20, 30, everything gets incredible. So definitely make sure you're around to experience that win and start investing yesterday. And trust me, there were plenty of headaches with all the contractors and cash flow uh-ohs and oh-nos because there's seasonality involved. But just like everything, you got to look at it over time. There's going to be always a moment or two where you're like, oh my God, is this even worth it? And you're going to be very frustrated. But over a year's time, you might find that the Airbnb issues you had, it's less than 1% of the issues of all the stays you have. And I think if you ask any Airbnb host, they're probably going to confirm that if you're running a good business, on average, the big issues, they're like less than 1% of the time. Make sure you remember this because it's very true. Every challenge and pain that you have right now is just a funny story that is going to turn into a real great story of success. If these lessons, stories, and numbers are starting to inspire you to see the potential in every property, hit that subscribe button. Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's keep building wealth. One property, one lesson, and one laugh at a time. Thanks for watching, and remember, every property is a stepping stone to building incredible wealth. And if you're ready to start working with us on our mastermind, go ahead and book that call, and we'll see if you're a good fit.